I'm Anita Huberman. I'm CEO of the Surrey Board of Trade, and thank you so much for attending the Surrey Digital Town Hall event. And this morning we are featuring a very special keynote speaker, so important to British Columbia's economic recovery, BC's Minister of Jobs, Economic Development and Competitiveness, Minister Michelle Mungall, and she'll be introduced shortly. I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, specifically the Kwantlen, Katzie, Semiahmoo, and Tawasin First Nations. And events at the Surrey Board of Trade simply would not take place without sponsorship. I'd like to thank, first of all, the Port of Vancouver for their ongoing sponsorship of the Surrey Digital Town Hall Series. And a special thank you to our frontline workers, ensuring that our national, global, and local supply chains are getting to market. And thank you to our marine terminal operators, our truck drivers, our railroaders at the Port of Vancouver. And of course, a really important element of economic recovery is infrastructure development. And I thank you so much to the BC Infrastructure Benefits Organization for their support of this event. And you'll hear from them very shortly. I'd like to just indicate that this session is being recorded. If you do have any questions, please type them in the chat function now, and we'll get to your questions. If I'm not able to, then we'll respond after the session is over. I'd also like to indicate that the Surrey Board of Trade were one of 9 organizations as part of the Premier's Economic Recovery Task Force, identifying gaps and opportunities during the pandemic, but also post-pandemic. And also we're trying to ensure that Surrey is an opportunity city. Surrey is going to be the largest city in British Columbia very soon. We're growing by 1,400 people a month with a very diversified industry base. And that is why we are hosting Canada's first Surrey Economic Recovery Summit next week, June 25 and June 26. And we're very pleased to have the Premier of British Columbia with us on that day, on June 26. We're going to be focusing on 7 industry sectors, and I really ask you to participate. Go to businessinsurrey.com. It's free of charge, but we need your input to ensure that Surrey is going to be an opportunity city. And we have a direct line right into the Prime Minister's office, also providing that on-the-ground intelligence on gaps and opportunities during the pandemic and also after the pandemic. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for attending this morning. I'd like to invite Greg Johnson. He is the Director of Industry Relations for BC Infrastructure Benefits to say a few words. Greg.
Thank you, Anita, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm Greg Johnson, and as Anita said, I'm with British Columbia Infrastructure Benefits. We're the BC Crown Corporation that's implementing the province's Community Benefits Agreement. It's my privilege to introduce the Honorable Michelle Mungall. I'm looking forward to hearing her comments about the economy, because at BC Infrastructure Benefits, we're proud to be playing our part. What we do is we put the Community Benefits Agreement into action on major infrastructure projects. Now, it's the province's strategy to build our major projects and to make sure the benefits from the construction and the jobs specifically stay close to home. Those are projects like the Patello Bridge replacement and the Broadway subway project. So what that means is we're hiring and employing locals, Indigenous people, women, and apprentices first for these projects. And here's why, is we're facing a skills shortage, a shortage of skilled workers. It's not new, it's not just here in British Columbia, it's all across North America. Now, British Columbia is leading the country in construction growth, or at least we were last I checked. COVID-19 has flipped things upside down, and we need to regain the momentum our province had before the pandemic and push BC to continue its construction growth. Without an available skilled workforce, that wouldn't be possible. So our mandate is to mobilize and grow a diverse skilled workforce for the province on select provincial infrastructure projects. Right now, construction sites are primarily white males. Women and Indigenous people are underrepresented in the construction trades, about 5% each. Everyone in the industry knows this, and that there's room for improvement here. Our economy needs it, but there are barriers preventing it. That's why we hire qualified people, women, Indigenous people, locals, and other underrepresented workers first. These new workers are the future of BC construction workforce. Their career and training they might not otherwise get. So as we get ready to start construction on the Patello Bridge replacement project, we're hiring and employing up to 350 workers. If you're a skilled construction worker from Surrey, looking to step up your career, that could be you. If you're a contractor who will need more workers in the future, these skilled workers could one day be the next hires for your team. So apply for work or learn more about our workforce at bcib.ca. And now to introduce our speaker, Minister Michelle Mungall was the first woman elected as MLA for Nelson Creston in 2009. And before that, in 2002, she was elected to Nelson City Council, the youngest woman ever. Her university studies and her career in community development have led her to champion social justice and financial security. Prior to entering politics, she worked in the nonprofit sector to reduce poverty and support people in crisis. Internationally, she worked at YMCA Zambia, helping to improve the lives of girls with HIV/AIDS, and has volunteered as an election observer in 2 Ukraine elections. She previously held the position of Minister of Energy, Mines, and Petroleum Resources, and today she is Minister of Jobs, Economic Development, and Competitiveness. Please welcome the Honorable Michelle Mungall.
Thanks very much, Greg, and had a little technological hiccup there where out of nowhere my computer decided to say there was a major error and shut itself off. So I've been able to get back on using another device, and that's the good news of technology these days. Few of us have just one device, we have many, and so I pulled up my iPad here, and very, very pleased to be able to join the Surrey Board of Trade today from my home community here in Nelson on the traditional territory of the Ktunaxa Nation. And I really like to take these opportunities at the top of the town hall to just say thank you. Huge thank you to all the business owners out there, all the employees out there who have been going through what is probably the biggest crisis our globe is going to be facing in our lifetime. And the amount of change that we've had to adapt to in a very short period of time is nothing to scoff at. It's been quite incredible. And the fact that businesses and their employees have risen to the occasion and done whatever was necessary to reduce the spread of COVID-19 needs to be recognized. And I want to do that now and say thank you so much. It's because of British Columbians like you that we have been able to reduce the spread of COVID-19 in our province and have people from all over the world, leaders from all over the world look at our jurisdiction as one to emulate. And that's not just because of activities done by our public health officer, who we are so fortunate to have here in British Columbia, Dr. Bonnie Henry, not just because of activities that have been done by our government, but mostly because of our citizens who have taken this so incredibly seriously. And the leadership that businesses have shown in their communities needs to be recognized. So thank you so much for everything you've done. And I know that this is a very worrisome, very scary time for a lot of small business owners who are seeing their livelihoods come into question, not knowing what the future holds. And I want you to know that when we say that we're all in this together, it's not just a good statement to say, it is a way of being. And that is exactly how we have been approaching this crisis for the last 3 months, and will continue to do so going forward. So with that, I really look forward to the questions that you all have and doing my best to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. And I wanted to ask you about the ministry's international trade goals. The new NAFTA begins on July 1st. Surrey is a border city. We still actively trade with the United States, especially since Surrey has the greatest number of manufacturers within British Columbia. But the border remains closed. Tell us your perspective about international trade goals for the ministry.
So that's a really great question, Anita. Big question. I think the thing to remind everybody is that while the borders are closed to non-essential travel, they are not closed to trade. In fact, trade is very essential to our economy, and it's very essential to our supply chain. And so things like personal protective equipment have been going across the borders. Food has been going across the borders. A lot of the items that we manufacture have been going across the borders. What has changed, though, in this time is not necessarily the border, but the demand and where the marketplace actually is for our products and for the products that we also import. A lot has been shifting in the last 3 months and is going to continue to shift going forward. And that shift, the way how I like to boil it down is closer to home, is that people want to see more of the items that they rely on in that supply chain being available closer to home. So we look at personal protective equipment being in such demand right now around the world and wanting to see more of it manufactured closer to home. And a lot of British Columbia businesses have been retooling so that they can meet that demand. As an example, going forward, we're going to see a lot of greater demand, I think, for closer to home with food and wanting to see that greater food security closer in our backyards, in our province, within nationally as well, and relying a little bit less on import and export around that. Some of the commodities that we generally export are in our natural resources have seen a downturn in pricing, and that has impacted that international trade as well. But I see that there's also going to be some opportunity for British Columbia products. Mass timber, for example, is a lot of the world in construction is looking at new materials. I see that there's going to be an opportunity for value added in our forestry sector, which can have a positive benefit all over the province, as well as for other manufacturing that we do here in British Columbia. But the challenge before us is not necessarily knowing exactly what the market demand is going to be in I'd say within the next year or further down the road. So we're in a little bit of a sit and wait period at the moment. We do know that PPE is a high demand right now, and that provides us an opportunity to maintain manufacturing. I will say also that in terms of NAFTA, that's coming into force, as you mentioned, July 1st. And we've been very fortunate to have a lot of British Columbians' concerns being addressed with our federal government as they renegotiate NAFTA, and that it's going to be coming into force soon is good news, and it's very good news for our export-based economy.
Surrey has a thriving health and technology district, such amazing innovation happening right here in Surrey. Can you tell us your perspective about British Columbia's life sciences industry sector and how it's going to play a role in economic recovery?
So I would say that even prior to this crisis, life sciences has played a really important role in BC's overall tech sector. Our tech sector is just growing hand over fist, and I see going forward as we move into economic recovery that innovation and technology is going to play an important role at maintaining BC's competitiveness on a global scale, whether it's our traditional industries or new emerging economies. And I'll just highlight that we did a report on emerging economies with our Emerging Economy Task Force, and they noted that innovation and technology is playing a very important role as we look to the future. In terms of life sciences and their particular contribution to our opportunities going forward, I think that what we're seeing around the world is a greater interest in life sciences, not just to address the immediate need around COVID-19, but to understand better how we can prepare for future pandemics and how we can ensure that treatments come sooner rather than later, as well as all host of other health issues. I'd say that the spotlight is really shining on the life sciences right now. And so my ministry has been working with Life Sciences BC. We just had a meeting with them a week ago, or I did have a meeting with them a week ago. And we're talking about the economic report for the sector that my ministry is working on with them to identify the future opportunities for the sector and how our government can be of assistance in growing the sector. And it's so timely with COVID-19 and looking at an economic recovery, and that this sector provides us with a lot of opportunities for job creation, good family supporting job creation throughout the province. And so I think that the opportunities are quite significant for British Columbia. And the fact that that Surrey already has a thriving sector means that Surrey is very well placed to benefit from the opportunities that the sector provides in economic recovery.
Can you speak, I know this is a huge topic, but just generally speak to what the economic plan is for British Columbia, and knowing that, of course, it's going to change, as we go through very uncertain times.
Yeah, really big topic. And it unfortunately, as we talk about it, it doesn't yield a lot of details that people are looking for right now. And it's just simply because of the uncertainty that just exists in our world at the moment. But what we have done is we have started it with a restart. And that's where you see a lot of other jurisdictions where they are at in the world right now, is just getting restarted, opening things back up. British Columbia didn't shut down as much as a lot of other jurisdictions, and that was very conscious. We worked with Dr. Henry's office and with the Ministry of Health because we saw the need to maintain a strong baseline of economic activity, because we knew that we were going to have to restart and we were ultimately going to have to recover, and we wanted a strong base to recover from. And so we made some very conscious decisions that our baseline was what we're calling around the world phase 2. So you'll hear other provinces like Alberta, Ontario, Quebec say that they're moving into phase 2, which is actually where we're starting from. And so moving into phase 3 is we're watching for the time where it's safe to do so. And that's the thing, is we're always working with Dr. Bonnie Henry to identify when the next stage of further opening up can take place. We know that this has to be done slowly. It has to be done surely. We don't want to put ourselves in a position where we did things too fast, and then they require us to, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. We don't want to be playing that game. We want to be able to take 2 steps forward, 2 steps forward, 2 steps forward. So we have to do things in a way that is going to be done safely. And I think that's what British Columbians have been telling us they want as well, and very wisely so. And so when we look at the longer term economic recovery, I think the BC Business Council, which has spoken to us at our Economic Recovery Task Force, Anita, that you're a part of, very glad to have you there. That task force, we've been hearing from the analysis done by the BC Business Council that we can anticipate an economic recovery once we move from restart and into recovery. It's going to be a 3 to 5 year process, and they've done incredibly in-depth analysis to give us some certainty around a time frame, 3 to 5 years. And so when we're planning for economic recovery, we're starting with that baseline, as I spoke about earlier, but we need to start thinking about what does it look like over the next while and what that while is. And so we have to plan for a 3 to 5 year incremental stage to get us back on track to where we were before March of 2020.
And certainly that's what we're doing with our Surrey Economic Recovery Summit next week, just the beginning of an ongoing business continuity platform for a very diverse industry sector base, and very important to BC's overall economy as well. But one of the pieces that we released last year was Surrey's first ever workforce strategy, as well as its first ever labor market report, with many calls to actions for our diverse industry base with Minister Simpson. Tell us about your perspective related to your portfolio around workforce challenges for industries to ensure economic competitiveness.
So one of BC's big challenges prior to the pandemic was skills, having a skills shortage. That's the word I was looking for. Having a skills shortage. We were doing the best in the country in terms of employment, and that's great news, right? We had a lot of jobs, good family supporting jobs for British Columbians. And in fact, so much so that we were seeing a skills shortage. My big concern going forward with the outcome of the pandemic on our economy is not so much a skills shortage, but a skills mismatch. As we start to recover and rebuild our economy, there's going to be certain areas that are going to move slower than before. We know that's going to be the case for tourism. We are going to need to start spending more time in our own backyards and really visit local, which is, I'm really looking forward to this summer, getting out to a few places closer to home and exploring my own backyard a little bit more. I live in the Kootenays, so there's lots to explore and it's all beautiful. But we know that we're going to have workers who might not have the skills for the industries that are going to be able to pick up faster. So that skills mismatch is a real concern for the workforce. So what do we do to create that skills matching? And so we need to be working with our post-secondary institutions around the province so that we can get people trained up quickly and into the positions that are going to be opening up sooner in our economy, so that people can ultimately, the most important thing is get food on the table for themselves and their families. And so making sure we have good skills matching, I think, is going to be one of our bigger challenges in the months ahead.
Thank you. And to the audience, if you have any questions, just a reminder to type them in the chat function, please. Minister, energy investments, from our perspective, and I'm sure you agree, is a driver of economic growth. This would benefit all of British Columbia. Can you provide your perspective on this for the audience, please?
Anita, I used to be the Minister of Energy and Mines. I don't know that you've got another 2 hours to hear me go on about this. Oh man. BC is so fortunate that 98% of our energy is already carbon free. And that key factor, I think, is the biggest issue driving energy in the world right now, because before we were hit with the pandemic, the globe was figuring out how to reduce its carbon emissions. And the big emitters like China, India, the US, were all working on how to reduce their emissions. But so were smaller emitters like British Columbia with our world-leading Clean BC plan. And so and the reality is that the pandemic hasn't changed that need to drive down carbon emissions. What we have seen is with less travel, less trade, and sadly less economic activity, the demand on energy has gone down, and so carbon emissions and greenhouse gas emissions have gone down as well. So I think the opportunity right now exists to look at how we can ensure renewable energy takes fossil fuel, GHG energy, takes its place going into the future. And we're in a position right now where we're at a fork in the road in terms of the investment into renewable energy, because investment in most energy sources is going down as a result of the pandemic. So there's a lot of questions out there, a lot of uncertainty, but the interest in renewable energy is still very high, and there's still a lot there. So, and I don't want to just highlight renewable energy, because I was about to start talking about LNG. So LNG is being used in other jurisdictions as a way to drive down greenhouse gas emissions. Thermal coal is the largest emitter. And so when we're producing electricity en masse for a large society, like what's happening in Asian countries, that is a large emission of GHGs. And so Asian countries have been just amazing at leading the way and finding methods to quickly drive down their GHGs. And LNG has been a good source of that, because it's half the GHGs of thermal coal. And so they've been switched, and they can switch their coal-fired electrical plants to LNG quite quickly. And so they've been doing that. And this is where LNG Canada comes into play, is because British Columbia has a large source of natural gas, and if we can liquefy it, we can trade it, and we can help reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the largest emitting countries in the world. And we're doing that. And so with that investment, $40 billion investment that is continuing on right now, British Columbia has an opportunity to contribute to global greenhouse gas reduction, while also working with Indigenous nations in the North to address their concerns around economic development and economic opportunity. And that project is going forward. BC has also a lot of opportunity in terms of its trading relationships with BC Hydro through PowerX throughout the Pacific Northwest to provide clean, renewable energy to other jurisdictions. For example, like California, when they're using solar power during the day, but they're looking for another renewable source in the evening, we have that ability to trade those different renewable energy sources back and forth. And so there's a huge opportunity for British Columbia through its Clean BC plan and through its natural resources to be able to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and help develop energy sources that are better for the planet.
Thank you.
Sorry, that I could have gone on so much more. Sorry about that.
No, that's very useful information, because we need to be able to utilize different sectors within our economy to ensure we have that competitive future. And from what I heard, international trade, international relations will be a strong part of that. And that's why my next question turns into not only the fact that Surrey is a border city, but how can we leverage the Cascadia economic advantage? And if you can just explain for the attendees what that is.
Well, I talked a little bit about the energy opportunity there with BC Hydro and PowerX and trading renewable energy across jurisdictions in the Cascadia region, or the Pacific Northwest a little bit more broadly, including some of the prairie provinces, as well as the California and some of the Midwest. So there's energy opportunities there. But I would like to maybe highlight more the innovation and technology opportunities. We have an incredible corridor in the Cascadia region where the tech sector has just really taken root and has found a lot of HQs and home bases and a really fruitful ecosystem. And so that's why we're moving forward with innovation collaboration with in the Cascadia region, so with Washington, with Oregon, and working with them in terms of how do we create this corridor of innovation and strong ecosystems for the tech sector, so that we can grow that tech sector and even more than what is we're seeing already now. And part of the reason we're able to do that is because this corridor is also a very desirable place to live. And we know that lifestyle is really important to attracting the talent necessary to have a flourishing ecosystem in the tech sector. So we're trying to leverage all of our natural assets in the Cascadia region for the tech sector and work together to really grow it.
Excellent. A question from a White Rock City Councillor to you is, what opportunities are there for small towns to create jobs, especially in the tourism and hospitality sector? We know it's been hit hard, and White Rock is absolutely a destination here in British Columbia.
Yeah, I remember I grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, and the big trip every year with my family was to go down to White Rock, actually. So I remember it very well, have a lot of fond memories of being with my cousins on the beach in White Rock. I think that as we look forward into the immediate future, our big question is, how do we keep our tourism industry afloat? The situation is causing them to be very concerned for just day-to-day cash flow to stay alive. So what can we do? We need, especially as a city councillor and as municipal government, we need to be partnering with our economic development agencies, with our chambers, with our boards of trades, with our business improvement associations. We need to be working collectively together with the tourism sector, with our destination marketing, and the province is fully on board with this to really promote spending time and exploring your backyard. A lot of people think of a vacation as something that we have to get on a plane and do far away. We can actually do things close to home. And like I said earlier, I'm really excited to take some time this summer to explore my own Kootenay backyard. And so I think that's one of the things that we need to do from an economic development perspective is look at who our market is right now and really start marketing to them and letting them know what they can do in their own backyard. Because from my experience, not just me personally, but all the people I've been talking to, and I've had hundreds of meetings in the last few months, people are actually really keen to see what's going on in their backyard. They don't want to be traveling far from home, but they do want to take some time off. They want to have a weekend getaway. So what does that look like when it's closer to home? We need to be told it. We're hungry. We're ready for it. So we're ready for that information, that marketing to be done to us be given to us as consumers. And then I would also say, though, in terms of creating jobs broadly, I think the opportunities that exist for us we need to start looking at that tech and innovation sector and look at how our communities, I represent small communities in rural British Columbia, and one of the things that we've been doing quite successfully is identifying sectors that are naturally interested in what we have to offer. And that right now is the tech sector, and making sure that we have the infrastructure that they need to be successful. We certainly have the communities that their talent is interested in so that they can have the people that they need to fulfill the work that they are doing. But I think that we can really expand BC's tech sector out of Vancouver base right throughout the province. And I think that requires some effort, though, from our leaders in local government and our leaders in the business community. But I do believe it's possible because I'm seeing it out here in rural BC.
One of the policies of the Surrey Board of Trade when your government came into power was to ask for all ministries to work in a more coordinated way, especially as it relates to economic development. We see Minister Simpson on the poverty reduction strategy. That's where our workforce strategy was funded from for Surrey. And tell us about how your ministry is working with other ministries to really focus on mitigating business and workforce challenges.
That's the interesting aspect of my ministry, is that we are that connector between different ministries for the purposes of economic development. So we don't exist like on a day-to-day basis, like we just can't exist in our silo. A lot of other ministries, they have a broader regulatory function, and so they focus on those regulations and the permitting processes. But my ministry has to think beyond just the regulatory framework and look at how those regulations, for example, enable or maybe disable economic development. And so that's one way we work with other ministries, is we do the analysis of whether our regulations are working for us or not, and how do we fix that. But I'll give you another example is one of the opportunities to really grow an area of our tech sector is through emergency planning. And boy, we've really seen that in the last few months. We're going to see it some more. We've seen it in the last few years, actually, as well, with the unprecedented fire season, some of the floods that happened last year, especially in the Grand Forks area. And so we've seen a lot of opportunity for better use of technology and innovation in emergency planning and emergency response. And so my ministry has been working with EMBC, which is out of the Ministry for Public Safety and Solicitor General, working very closely on those initiatives that grow the economy in terms of that particular sector, but also meet a very, very important need that we have here in British Columbia.
So yesterday we hosted Canada's Defense Minister, Harjit Sajjan, for a town hall, and he spoke about, of course, public safety investments related to emergency services and the like. But I'm intrigued, as my final question to you, is how you're working with the federal government to partner around economic competitiveness, not only for the nation, but more specifically for British Columbia.
Well, that's the thing, is that BC is a subnational government, and that when it comes to international trade, we have to have a partnership with our federal government. And so there's a variety of things that we've been doing. One of them is co-locating our trade offices and working more hand in hand with the federal government as we promote trade for BC products. But another thing is, in terms of the pandemic, I think it's really important for ministers themselves to also have a relationship and continue talking about what's going on in their respective jurisdictions and how we can be working together. And so one of the things that I've personally taken on is to have a positive relationship with my federal counterparts. And throughout this last 3 months of this pandemic, I've been on the phone regularly with my federal counterparts. I have more than one. And we've been talking about what we need to be doing to put in place for economic recovery. And also, again, how do we respond to the economic needs of businesses, of workers in this pandemic environment, so that, again, that baseline I talked about earlier, making sure that we have a baseline to recover from, rather than having mass poverty. And so we've been working very closely together on over the phone and over the internet to make sure that the programs that the federal government is rolling out, that they're hearing our voices from British Columbia, but also finding ways that we can work together in terms of some of the infrastructure that we need for economic recovery.
Excellent. Any final words before we conclude?
Well, I started off by saying thank you to all the businesses. And so I want to my final words would be to everybody who's out there: shop local. Our businesses need us more than ever. Our communities need us more than ever. And so when you're making a decision of where to put your dollars, put it locally.
Thank you so much, Minister Mungall. And thank you so much to the Port of Vancouver and BC Infrastructure Benefits, building that needed Pattullo Bridge. We are anticipating it and hope construction begins soon. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for attending. And remember to register for Surrey's Economic Recovery Summit, taking place June 25 and June 26. Make it a great business day. Thank you.